Ready?
I got 6.
We're good? Okay, everybody, this is it. The last one. Whoopee. Now, the beginning of a new day for Dewey Beach. Getting me the hell out of Dodge. Good evening, everyone. This is the Town Commissioners meeting of the Town of Dewey Beach, Friday, September 10th, 2021, and is now a few seconds after 6 p.m. Convene the Town Commissioners meeting, opening ceremonies, Pledge of Allegiance, excuse me. Oh, all the way. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Everybody would stand for just a moment of silence for all our troops out in the world here. Thank you very much. We'll do the roll call. We'll start from this side over here, the side that says I always forget them, and we'll work our way around.
Bill Stevens.
Dave Jasinski.
Gary Persinger.
Paul Bauer.
And Mayor Dale Cook, and we have our town manager, Bill Zolper, our town police chief, Mr. Mackert, Chief Mackert, and our town attorney, Fred Townsend. And in the back is a couple of our employees too, working hard behind the scenes there. We've had the roll call when they have adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
There's a motion to adopt by Mr. Stevens, second by my esteemed colleague, Mr. Persinger. And any questions about it? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? Unanimous. Updates and announcements. I have a couple, and then I'll ask the commissioners if they have anything. I want to remind everybody that on September 18th, 6 p.m. on the beach, town party, sponsored by Dewey Beach Business Partnership. And then on September 25th, there'll be the new organizational meeting for the new set of commissioners here in the Life Saving Station at 6 p.m. That's Saturday the 25th. And then the Dewey Beach Civic League is sponsoring a meet and greet of the town manager and employees October 16th at 4 p.m. Saturday here in the Life Saving Station. I'm correct on that, right, Bill?
Yes, sir.
Yes, okay. And I would urge everybody that's interested out there in meeting our employees and our new town manager, please come in to that meet and greet on the 16th of October. On this side, anybody have any announcements they want to make, any commissioners?
I do not.
No. Nope.
No.
Okay. Let's go with approval. You've got the August 13th, 2021 town minutes.
Motion.
You're motioning to approve
Motion to approve.
by Mr. Bauer. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Persinger. Any further discussion? Mr. Persinger?
Yeah, I have a change to propose. This is in paragraph 5
Yeah, so it's-
with respect to the virtual meeting policy. If you recall, the original draft of the policy had fairly strict requirements for the commissioners, the Board of Adjustment, the Audit Committee, and Planning and Zoning, so that they would need a quorum in the room.
Right.
But the other members could participate virtually. We decided to make a change based on some comments from Commissioner Jasinski. And instead, we would hold both just the Board of Adjustment and the Town Council to that stricter standard of having a quorum present in the room. The Audit Committee, the Planning and Zoning could have a majority of its members in the room, but the rest of the members could be participating virtually. So I've already emailed my proposed change to Kate so that she'll have it for the record. But what it would say in the third line of the minutes, Commissioner Persinger asked to amend the draft policy to state, and this is an addition, that a quorum must be present at the anchor location only for meetings of the Town Council and Board of Adjustment, and for meetings of the Planning and Zoning Commission, Audit Committee, and any new board or committee that may be established by the town charter or code. a majority of the number of members constituting the quorum must be present in the anchor location. If we accept this proposed change, this is actually the only place where it will be documented. And I think we ought to have the policy fully written and then disseminate it to all of the committees so that they all understand what the policy is. And I did prepare a draft of that. I think I sent that to the town manager and also to Kate, but I just think we need to keep focused on that so everybody understands what our policy is.
Well, of course, the minutes are what was actually said, and that's what.
And this is what we approved.
Right.
So,
Do you accept the change to the motion?
Yes.
Do you, as a second, do you accept?
Sure. Well, I don't know who seconded, but I.
Gary did.
Well,
Yeah,
Mr.
okay.
Perkins is second.
I did second, yes, I accept.
Well, let's keep this meeting organized here. So, motion as amended on the floor. So, any further discussion? I'll call the question, then all in favor say aye. Aye. Any against, say nay. Any abstentions? Unanimous, Kate. Okay. Approval of minutes. We're down to public comment. Kate, do we have anybody, or is there anybody here that wants to make public comment? Hearing none, we'll move on. Item number 1, presentation by Carol Everhart with the Rehoboth Dewey Beach Chamber of Commerce regarding the 2021 beach bonfires and movies. Bless you, whoever sneezed. Come, Carol? Carol, is your title president or chairperson or?
Actually, it's president and CEO. The paper keeps calling me executive director, and I don't care. It's all okay. First, thank you for giving me the opportunity to bring you up to date on a few things, especially the movies and bonfires. Can you hear me? Can't hear. Let's try that. Is that better? Okay. 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 So the first thing is that I want to remind Dewey commissioners that the visitor's guide, believe it or not, the information is due in November if we're going to have it in January to send out. And there are 140,000 copies of those printed. You are gratis 2 pages. There's about $1,700 a piece. So you want to get your info in there. But we just need to make sure we try to get it in November. Those are, we advertise both social media, but we also advertise in many printed items, everything from home and gardens to any kind of a travel magazine, and those are mailed out. We have the names and addresses, or we have the email. So it has to be proven. A lot of that funding comes from either the purchase of those pages, or it comes from a portion of the accommodation tax. The other thing I wanted, now, movies and bonfires, great success. We want to thank the town again for providing the free parking during those. That really helps it be successful. The visitors love it, the accommodations love it, the businesses love it. So we want to continue that. And also, I know that town manager Bill was down there several times to make sure everything was going just right. And also, the town was very gracious in letting us use the restrooms down there for those. 8 of this, we purchased 8 movies. 7 of them made it through the weather, okay? And we had advertised, and there was 1,917 attendees. Wow. So 8 movies, 7 made it, 1,917 happy people. Out of the 7 scheduled bonfires, 5 made it through the weather, okay? And we had 1,373 attendees. Wow. The combined total expense was $4,381. That was offset by $3,536 in donations. So that was a net profit of $745, not including staff. So it was a good deal. It was pretty much of a break even. We want to make sure that you know that the chamber we're back in action. And all of our events are scheduled. The first one's at the Hyatt, Business After Hours, on September 22nd. I hope you can come by, say hi, and join us. I wanted you to know that we are also scheduled all events. General membership is beginning this month through the end of the year. And of course, there's the Sea Witch Fund. So in the back of the room, I left some posters about Sea Witch in the Fall Fun. Don't forget the scarecrows. Everybody got to make a scarecrow. Got really cute little trophies this year. And we also wanted you to know that the number one question, and I was already asked a couple times tonight, what is it the media wants to know? What's the number one thing they're asking? And of course, it's about the staffing. So and the visitation. Visitation is very high, which I'm sure you all know. I will not have those numbers until I get a traffic count and we do our formula to tell you about how many visitors came through here, went into down Route 1, and went into Rehoboth. But we will have that before the end of the year. What we're hoping for, everybody says, what do you hope for? I would love to see 2019's staffing level at 2021's visitation level, and then we'd really kill it. So unless you have any questions, that's it for me. No questions?
Thank you.
I got all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Carol, what is the specific date? Is it just the end of November that you need everything?
Let's say that again.
You said that you needed information from us by November.
Early November.
Okay.
The first week of November is the best. Not saying I can't hold the 2 pages for another week or two because you're almost there with the decision on something. But I'll definitely hold the 2 pages no matter what. But I would love to get in there what you'd like to see in there.
And what we put in there is what we better be doing.
Yes.
Yeah, not what we hope we're going to do.
Yes.
Because it's going to be finalized and printed.
Yes, yes. So we are, as Monty tried very hard to make it the Dewey Rehoboth Chamber, and we'd like to make sure it's even Steven. Okay?
Carol, thank you all very much for everything the chamber does
You're welcome.
for Dewey Beach.
Oh, you're welcome.
We certainly appreciate what you've done.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just doing our job?
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you.
If there's no other questions, I will move on to item number 2. Discuss and possibly vote to approve the 2021 audit report for the town of Dewey Beach. And Julie, if you'll come up and.
Pardon my giddiness. Knee surgery stinks. Just saying. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, for allowing me to be here to, can you hear me? I was going to say, I am much, I'm an attorney. I speak loudly. It's what I have to do. So thank you for allowing me to be here. As you all know, we have the audit committee has received the final audit report. We received it back on August 13th. And we are pleased to announce that the audit went very well. This is our 3rd year with Cohn-Resnick. And we are very pleased with how they've handled the audit in the last 3 years. Unfortunately, we're going to have to, at least do an RFP in the coming fall to get ready for the next year's audit because their contract is up. But we expect them to resubmit to that, but we'll also, obviously, it'll be a fair and open participation from anybody who presents an audit. But I'm just here to ask the commissioners if there are any questions and to submit the committee's recommendation to accept the audit as submitted.
And that's what we're doing. We're not approving the audit, so to speak. We're accepting the audit from the audit committee and from Cohn-Resnick.
A motion to accept it.
Second.
Motion to accept the audit, Mr. Bauer, and Mr. Jazinski seconded. Mr. Persinger, your question?
Yeah, not a question. Can I just make a couple of comments?
Absolutely.
I know you all don't have copies of the audit report, but I think there are a couple of things worth pointing out. If you had the audit report and you looked at page 14, which is a balance sheet, we had a long process where we were determining what the auditors call our general fund balance policy. And out of that, we had a number of things, I think, that came out of the audit, I think, which were really good things. One of which is a new assigned capital improvements fund of about $650,000. Like the streets and infrastructure money that we have available, it'll never be enough, but it's a lot more than we had before. So I think that's really a good result out of the audit. The other thing I would just point to is we still have a large unassigned fund balance, but that includes our rainy day fund, which is about 50% of our operating expenditures for this year. We had intended to make that a separate account, but for reasons that only auditors and accountants care about, we couldn't do that. So it remains in the unassigned fund balance, but it is noted in a footnote on page 33 of the audit. So I'm sure you're all taking notes on that. You're going to go right back and pull the audit report and see what I was talking about. But I did want to make note of those two things. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions?
Not at all.
We have a proper motion and a second on the floor. Any other discussion at all? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any against, say nay. Any abstentions? Unanimous. Julie, thank you very much for everything you're doing, in spite of that limp.
Thanks. I gotta hobble out of here now.
Thank you, Julie.
The next item on the agenda is to open a public hearing. As usual, I like to go to our town attorney to handle the public hearings, and he knows I catch him off guard each time we have a public hearing. So if Mr. Townsend, you will take over and run the public hearing,
Okay, I will.
and I'll try to keep my mouth shut.
Thank you, Mayor. At this point, we have noticed a public hearing on the question of an amendment to our comprehensive plan and to our zoning map in Dewey Beach regarding the parcel at 26 Bellevue Street, which is tax map number 334, 2018, parcel 150. The applicant is desirous of changing the zoning from resort residential to RB2, resort business, and has submitted an application for that purpose. That application has been referred to the Planning Commission and subsequently returned to us with a recommendation of recommendation in favor of the rezoning. Our requirement at this point is to conduct a public hearing and to hear from the public to make a decision as to whether this lot is appropriate for RB2 zoning. It's customary.
That's it, Frank.
Okay.
Time's up.
I was given 2 minutes.
I'll remind everybody to turn their phones off or turn the sound off.
Okay, it's customary that we would hear from the applicant during the public hearing process. Oftentimes, the applicant is going to be asked, and the public is interested in knowing what the applicant's plans are for redevelopment of a parcel they're seeking to rezone. Those redevelopment plans, however, are not what's before us tonight. They're not what was before the Planning Commission. They just provide context for everyone in terms of determining whether RB2 is a suitable zone for 26 Bellevue Street. So I'm going over some of this material for the benefit of the audience that we've discussed in prior meetings when we've discussed the process involved in a rezoning application. So we could take some comments from staff, but I think at this point, it might be appropriate just to call on the applicant, have the applicant make their presentation, then we could invite staff to make any comments they wish to make about the technical aspects of the application, and then we would hear from the public prior to closing the public hearing. Does that seem fair to everyone? Okay.
You're in charge on that.
All right, so at this point, I think we'll ask for the applicant to give us the presentation they intend to in support of the application.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. Mayor Cook, members of Town Council, Mr. Zopel, Mr. Townsend. My name is Glenn Mandalis. I'm an attorney with Baird Mandalis Brockstead. I represent the Starboard Claw Land Company, who is the applicant. Mr. Steve Montgomery is here with me tonight. He's a principal of Starboard Claw, and so is Keith Kirk, more affectionately known as Toasty. I got to say, and I said this at the planning and zoning meeting as well, I feel completely under-retired. I used to have Mr. Townsend's role in these things, and I was in suit and tie, but this guy actually writes into my engagement letters that I'm not allowed to wear a suit or a tie when I'm representing him, so I'm even more offended that he actually is dressed nicer than I am this evening. So, Monty, thank you. So Starboard Claw is the contract purchaser of 1816 Coastal Highway where Hammerhead is located, and I'm going to refer to that parcel as parcel 1 this evening. Mr. Townsend already read the tax parcel number. Its zoning designation is Resort Business, RB2, and that property is located on the corner of Coastal Highway in Bellevue. Starboard Claw is also the contract purchaser of a property at 26 Bellevue Street, and that's the property that's the subject of this evening's hearing. It's behind and adjacent to Hammerheads, and we'll refer to that as parcel 2. Its zoning designation is Resort Residential, and we provided an owner's affidavit that confirms that Starboard Claw is able to seek these approvals on behalf of the actual owner. So pursuant to Dewey Beach Code Section 18573, we are requesting a change in zoning designation for parcel 2 from Resort Residential to RB2 so that should this property be rezoned, both the front property and the rear property will have RB2 designation in the entirety. The application was presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission on August 6th, and as Mr. Townsend said, it has a recommendation of approval, and in fact, it was a unanimous recommendation of approval. It was also presented, the application, at a plus meeting. That's when the state agencies get together to review the rezoning request. The agencies represented at that meeting had no objections to the proposed zoning. So as a little bit of background, for more than 60 years, the Starboard has been an anchor town, or an anchor property in the town of Dewey Beach. More recently, Starboard Raw opened in 2016, and that further demonstrated the franchise's commitment to the town of Dewey Beach. With the approvals we're seeking, Hammerheads will be converted into Starboard Claw, and it'll serve amazing seafood with the iconic Starboard flair. So we're kind of an open book about what we are proposing to do with the property. It will be a restaurant, as Mr. Townsend said, that this is not the, it provides context, it's not what's before you tonight, but we do and fully intend to convert those two properties or extend the Hammerheads building so that we can convert it to the Starboard Claw restaurant. So to be clear, as we just mentioned, we're at the rezoning phase, and if the rezoning is approved, we need to follow up with certain applications. We'll need an application for a conditional use approval, which will allow the restaurant to be there. We'll need an approval from the town to combine the lots. So there's still a few more steps to go in the process. And there's going to be an opportunity at those steps to talk about site plan type items, things like parking, things like noise, things like refuse, all of those things. And that will be an appropriate time to talk about all those things. I just don't want us to get too far down the road of considering those things tonight because it's really about the zoning. I should mention that at the P&Z meeting, there was a table handed out that had some concerns listed, and I've looked at those closely. They're all pretty much relate to the site plan, so I'm sure those will be a topic of discussion when we get there, should we get there. The proposed zoning change would require a comprehensive development plan amendment because the future land use map in the 28 CDP designates parcel 2 as resort residential. As I mentioned, that process at the state is already underway. We've got plus comments back and there's no objection from state agencies. Also, I should mention that the 2007 comprehensive plan, while recently there was kind of an overhaul of the town's zoning districts, the 2007 comprehensive plan did have this parcel designated with a commercial designation. So at least in the not too distant past, there was some intention that this property would be commercial. So as the town's zoning map illustrates, parcel 2 is largely surrounded by properties designated resort business 2, the zoning designation that we're requesting. The restaurant extension that we're anticipating would not be an intense use in this area. Bottle and Cork is across the street, Jimmy's Grill is across the street, ice cream shops and restaurants are on either side of the Hammerheads property. So the proposal really is consistent and in some instances less intense than the character of the surrounding properties. If we could, Kate, are we able to put up that just want to show an illustration that hopefully, I mean, it's very rudimentary, but I wanted to show an illustration of kind of where the RB2 district is along Coastal Highway and where our property is. So this is our property here. And as you can see, this line, it's not scientific. I drew that line kind of as what I saw as pretty much where the RB2 district extends. Our property is kind of an anomaly in that it sits in that area, but is not designated RB2. So I just wanted to show that the extension from Coastal Highway back into the residential districts, this is kind of a transitory zone, and many properties that are as far back as this one are already zoned RB2. So the 2018 CDP provides, and this is a quote, it says, "The RB2 district lines both sides of Coastal Highway. The purpose of this zoning district is to provide a middle level of commercial development intensity in a Main Street-like environment." And that same statement is recited in Town Zoning Code Section 185-3. And the starboard claw, the vision for this restaurant, is perfectly fits into the CDPs and the code's description of what is intended to be in the resort business zoning district, this transition area between the highway and the residential district. And as I said earlier, I just want to be absolutely clear about this. The only intention these gentlemen have is to consolidate the parcels and operate a restaurant. And I think it would be a fair concern, you know, an interested member of the public to say, well, what if they achieve this rezoning? Couldn't they sell the property, flip it, somebody come in and put a less desirable use there? Absolutely, that could be a possibility. My response to you, though, is that, you know, these guys live here, they work here, they have businesses here, they're your neighbors, you know the kind of businesses they operate, and they have, you know, a quality reputation that they need to protect. So that's not even been a discussion on the far outskirts of our discussions. The only intention here is to go forward with a restaurant. I mean, you guys know this guy. He's committed to Dewey Beach. He's worked for many, many years to put Dewey Beach kind of as a resort premier destination on the entire Eastern Shore. He's kind of here to stay, like it or not. So with that, we really appreciate you taking the time to hear our application tonight. We're happy to hear any questions, and we respectfully request that you grant us the RB2 zoning designation.
Okay. Yeah. For the commissioners now, is there opportunity to ask questions of Mr. Mandalis? Are there any questions for him from the commissioners?
I do not.
Not at this point? No.
Thank you very much.
I noticed the line that goes from RB2 to RR is, it dips into the resort residential neighborhood and then goes back out a lot. In other words, what I noticed is that addition of this property, changing it to RB2 would not take it much deeper into the RR neighborhood. I mean, other buildings and other lots are further into the RR neighborhood than this would be if it was changed.
That's right. I mean, in very close proximity, you've got these properties going much deeper into their residential neighborhoods.
I mean, that doesn't say good or bad, it's just saying a fact of life that it's not going to go that far into the RR neighborhood.
That's right.
If it's changed.
That's right. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mandalis, do you intend to ask for any other witnesses as part of your presentation, or just have them here in case questions are asked?
You come up just for a minute, Mr. Montgomery. Hey, you're dressed nice tonight. I've got it. So you've heard everything I've said, and I just want to ask if you would adopt that as your testimony this evening.
Yes.
That's all I need.
If I talk too much, I screw it up.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell these fine commissioners?
No, I think everyone understands what we're trying to do here, so keep it simple.
All right, thank you. No questions for Mr. Montgomery at this time?
No.
Okay. So, Mr. Dedes, do you have anything you want to add?
I would rather
At the very end, okay. So at the very end, if you would just incorporate into your comments that this public hearing has been duly noticed, it's been published, notice of the meeting's been published in the newspaper and posted and, right, okay. So at this point, then we'll open it up to the public. Are there any members of the public who would like to be heard on the subject? Anyone? All right, and if you would, when you reach the podium, introduce yourself and give us your address, please.
Hi, my name's Gary
You
Carr.
have to kind of speak closer to the mic.
Yeah, you can pull it towards you, right?
There you go.
My name's Gary Carr. I'm the homeowner at 21 Bellevue Street, unit number 4. This is the 7-townhouse property directly across from 26 Bellevue. And we've been property owners for 27 years here in Dewey. A few months ago, a number of Bellevue Street homeowners were fortunate to meet with Monty Chriselle, and they reviewed their vision with the property and listened and discussed some of our concerns. It's clear from their outstanding reputation in the community and the discussion at our meeting that if the rezoning and development takes place, that we believe that Monty and Chris will do whatever they can to be good neighbors, and we appreciate that. With that being said, I do feel there are some concerns that the committee should hear and discuss. With the input from other homeowners on Bellevue Street, we've consolidated a list of detailed issues. Bill, you can just pass that around.
Mr. Carp, is this the same list that
Yes.
had been circulated?
That we
Yeah.
circulated at the planning and zoning meeting, yes. The document lists a number of specific concerns, which I would expect would be discussed in detail at a conditional use meeting. But at a high level, the concerns that I have all revolve around traffic, parking, people, and safety. I'm not going to go through the list in detail, but just at a high level, I believe everyone recognizes that Bellevue is a busy street, partially due to the vendor Wendy's ice cream store. Additional business is going to increase traffic on the car traffic as well as bicycle traffic. One of the homeowners on the street recently communicated to other homeowners that he's so concerned about traffic and speed that he's contacted the state about putting speed bumps on Bellevue Street with the intention of having them there for next summer season. There's already very little available car parking. There's no available bicycle parking. The people concern is around all the additional people having to congregate on Bellevue Street because there's no room on the narrow sidewalk on Coastal Highway in front of the current hammerheads. And the overall safety concern is just the increase in traffic, lack of parking, and additional people on the street. So I think there's really two issues that the committee should be discussing today. One is whether the 26 Bellevue property is appropriate for rezoning. And secondly is whether this is the right time to make a zoning change. And I think the timing question is important. The town has a comprehensive development plan that's intended to provide a guide for future development. And the plan clearly discusses current concerns about traffic, parking, pedestrians, and safety within the community. And the development plan specifically calls out that parking availability is a consideration for businesses seeking a new operating location. Just recently in June, there was a status update on the development plan, and it states that there's 89 specific recommendations. 46 of those have not even been started. So my question around timing is, does it make sense to add to the traffic, people, parking, and safety issues when there's already known concerns in these areas and there's no current plan in place to address them? I have to say I was quite taken back at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting a few weeks ago, where they all voted on approving and sending to the town commissioners a favorable recommendation with almost no discussion. There was no reference to the comprehensive development plan. There was no discussion regarding issues or concerns regarding the change. They just approved it. I hope this committee will at least have a discussion on the merits and timing of the change. And lastly, let me just say that I am a supporter of this change. The thought of a nice restaurant with a quality ownership and management team is appealing. if the traffic, people, parking, and safety issues are going to be addressed by the town. And if they are not going to be addressed by the town, then I'm strongly opposed to the zoning change, because I think it'll be wrong to add to already known problems. I look forward to your discussion. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Carr? From the commissioners? Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Carr.
Hi, I'm Doug Kennedy. I'm at 15 Bellevue, and once again, I'm very supportive of the project. I'm actually the one that suggested the speed bumps and came up with that prior to even hearing that there was going to be a starboard claw. We do have a traffic problem on our street and a speed problem. I look at this as being an opportunity to solve that problem more than add to it. I think that, Monty and team have done an excellent job throughout the town, doing stuff with the state police, working around starboard, making sure that things are run in an orderly manner. Right now, that corner, even with hammerheads not being open, that corner is a dangerous corner. And the only thing I'll say is I really encourage having the ice cream shop get involved with these discussions and solving these problems, because a lot of the issues that we have at the end of the street, and I know that this is to talk about rezoning, but a lot of the issues, because I'll be gone when you guys have your next meeting, but a lot of the issues at the end of the street are stemmed from kids being out in the middle of the road with the hammerheads parking right there. And if that can be addressed and solved, I think that from my standpoint, I think that's a positive. So that's pretty much all I have.
Any questions for Mr. Kennedy? Anyone? Mr. Kennedy, could you explain a little further what makes that a dangerous corner? I think you touched on it just now with...
Yeah, so there's 3 or 4 parking spaces that go straight into hammerheads that people park and they stick out into Bellevue Street. So anybody making a turn off of Route 1 going north, a right-hand turn, they have to go around all those cars. On the other side of the street, you have parking that's, I guess it would be east-west parking that's next to the townhouses. So those spaces are all filled up. Then you have lines out the door at the ice cream parlor. And this is not I'm not going after the ice cream. I love the fact that they're busy. It's great. My kids eat there every night. It costs me a fortune to feed them all summer. But there's no place to gather and eat ice cream. And so the issue is when kids are wandering around in the street, when you have trucks or cars blocking going north and south coming off of the Hammerheads building, the opening to get around or to get onto Bellevue Street is so narrow. Now, I think we all agree, Bellevue has the end of season party. I think they do the movies at the end of the street. We're constantly busy, which we love. And every once in a while, we get a kid that'll race up and down the street at 40 or 50 miles an hour. It's a recipe for a disaster. And I think, once again, I think that this opportunity for us as a town, as a business owner, and as residents provides us the opportunity to kind of figure out how do we solve this. And that's why I really encourage getting the Vanderwins folks to address this also, because there can be a cleanup of that area right there. Maybe even some benches, get rid of one of the parking spaces and move it up the street a little bit and let people gather and sit and eat ice cream. But right now, it's a train wreck. And I think you guys have seen it as you walk by. There's just cars and people and all over the road. So, questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So good evening, everybody. My name is Steve Robbins, and I am the property owner at 22 Bellevue, which is 2 down from the subject property. And I must admit, in my real life, I too am an attorney, but outside of Delaware, and I've never appeared at a public hearing in short, so this is great. I love it. I'm even less stressed than you, and certainly less stressed than you, Monty. And also, to the chief of police, if you want real help, you should talk to Doug. He's good at supervising traffic on our street. Anyway, I'm the newcomer. We've been in Dewey Beach for 3 years, and we came from Ocean City, Maryland. So it was a move from Maryland to Delaware, and we love it here. You have a great town, and we're thrilled to be here. And I must compliment your town manager as well. He and your staff have been nothing but extremely pleasant, helpful. If we had questions, concerns about anything, They're right there. Bill met with us on the street. We said, we'll come to the office. He said, no, let's meet out on the site, take a look, see what's going on. Brought staff, and we really appreciate it. I really do. So I want to compliment you, Bill, and your staff. And then I also want to compliment the applicant, Monty, and Toasty. I'm not used to this Monty and Toasty stuff, but I don't know if the restaurant will have other people with nicknames, but we called Monty. Monty has been nothing but super responsive, as well as Chriselle and Toasty in terms of answering questions. And frankly, most of the concerns that have been raised in terms of what we've talked about, the parking issues, trash and all that, I understand that will be addressed at the conditional use. The applicant's attorney made a very appropriate acknowledgement, frankly, when he said, you know, you're coming here, it's a little bit of blind faith with the applicant moving forward, because what you're talking about is rezoning the property, and what happens if they flip it, they don't move forward, then you've got the commercial designation, but not with this guy. And I've spoken to Monty, I think, enough. And, you know, we've looked each other in the eye, we've spoken over the phone. I really do believe that if the property is rezoned, that this is the guy that's going to move forward with it. So while it is a little bit of blind faith in terms of the rezoning process, and back where I'm from, we have other types of zoning where you can actually put conditions on the zoning so that there's a greater understanding that if this doesn't move forward, if somebody else wants to move forward, at least they sort of have to follow the same rules. But that's not what you all are dealing with. But I do have faith that Monty will be a great operator, and we're supportive of that Hammerhead site changing into something that we can all be proud of. The Pink House as the addition to Hammerhead's is something that Monty has said that they really need to make a go of this. And there are, and as Gary mentioned, there are very reasonable concerns that the neighbors on Bellevue have as living there as a residential street. It's a busy street, but it's also, and I think Doug tried to express this, this is a street where when we bought our lot and then built our house, I really had no idea what I was getting myself into, and for my family. But it couldn't be more of a family-friendly, a neighborhood street where we bond together. We have our own neighborhood parties. We watch out for each other, and so this is this is very important to us that we have this same character of this neighborhood, that it doesn't change, that there's not drag racing going up the street. I mean, Doug is constantly coming up with ideas about and you will hear about this is not the appropriate forum for this, but of undergrounding utilities, of the speed bumps, of trying to maintain, at maintaining the traffic issues and all that. But seriously, Bellevue Street, I think, is really unique in this town, from what I can tell, in terms of the neighbors bonding together. So this is really important to us, that we have a great go at a operator that clearly has Dewey Beach in his heart and in his interest, and that when he says he's going to make a go of this, we can trust him. But there are issues that you all obviously indicated that you can't focus on, but you should look at that chart, because we are concerned about the parking, those parking spaces at the end of the street. Doug really opened my eyes to those parking spaces, because I never really focused about them, but Bill is aware of that. I'm sure that the chief of police is aware of that, and others, that when you swing around that corner, if you have anything less than a compact car there, or anything more than a compact car there, there's a really good chance that you're going to either take out the car or take out a pedestrian that is in the way. And so those two streets we've talked about, those two spaces at a minimum, we've suggested to Monty and others that as part of this application, that they take at least the first 2 parking spaces and make that bicycle parking and scooter parking in a beautiful waiting area for this restaurant. And I think you've been very receptive to that. And we've focused on screening for the neighbor next door and screening on the other side, which happens to be our property, some tree planting and screening, but for on the other side, closest to him, fencing and screening. And we've talked about outdoor hours of operation. And I understand that all of this relates to the conditional use and not to the rezoning, but it's important. It's important so that we understand that if this board grants the rezoning, that we can look a guy like Monty in the eye, and he looks back at us and said, you know what, when we come before the Planning and Zoning Commission, that we are going to do this right, and we're going to incorporate this stuff in the application so that you all are protected. And we appreciate that. And there's a whole host of issues and concerns that were raised, but I think they're things that can be addressed in the application itself. So let me just conclude that in general, at least, I'm supportive and my family is supportive of this rezoning. And it's because that we've got this applicant here. If it were a different applicant, I don't know if I'd be saying the same thing, but I trust that this applicant will in fact move forward. But hopefully, if you do grant this rezoning, you will send a message to the Planning and Zoning Commission that as part of the conditional use application, that they do need to focus on issues that are of great concern to our street and should be of concern to everyone to make, and Monty has expressed concern about addressing these issues so that everyone is aware and there's this assurance that the issues will be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for this witness? No. No? All right, thank you,
for
sir.
your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Anyone else wish to be heard on the subject? Anyone? Do the commissioners wish to take any time to look over the submission? I think many of you may have seen it before. So the written submission that was made. If we're ready to proceed, then we'll ask for Mr. Dedes to make some remarks.
I have a question of our attorney. We've heard all the positive effects. What are the possible negative effects of rezoning? I've tried to, play devil's advocate with myself and come up with negative effects, and I haven't come up with many. And what other than you can't guarantee who will own the property, eventually 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, that could change everything, the way people look at things. But are there any negative effects now? I mean, you're our attorney, you need to tell us what you think.
So that's a hard question to answer, but I mean, the way I would put it would be your analysis should be to what extent this particular site is appropriate for the zoning that's requested as opposed to its current zoning. It's not a competition between the two zonings, but is this an appropriate place geographically for a commercial use as opposed to a residential use? And I don't want to get into the merits of the applicant's position, but this parcel is adjoining to an RB2 district, so it's not an isolated area. So
Not spot zoning.
yeah, so it's not spot zoning. We're all very familiar with the configuration of Dewey Beach. There aren't many opportunities for someone to rezone a parcel that is to a commercial use that's nowhere near a existing commercial use. But if the application was to rezone a parcel on the ocean, you might think perhaps that's not an appropriate place to direct commercial activity. It should be more towards Main Street-like, the Main Street-like zoning district that is defined as RB2 in your code. I mean, negatives they've been mentioned. Once this property is rezoned, then any use that is permissible in that zone would be permissible on that lot. That lot doesn't have to be incorporated. In fact, in order to expand the existing conditional use, the applicant will have to incorporate the lot into their existing lot and request permission to expand their existing conditional use.
I guess I'm saying, I'm famous for saying, what are the unintended consequences? Are there possibilities that would, from the zoning standpoint, be a problem?
Well, in theory, and this has already been discussed, and as I was saying, that this, if a coin laundry is permissible in RB2, then that's what you could, in theory, get. So that would be an unintended consequence, I think, and we've heard testimony that even some of those who are concerned about the rezoning don't fear that particular event. I can't think of another.
Okay.
I think that a reason not to support an application like this would be it's not an appropriate location. There isn't the infrastructure for it. It's not the right place for a use that's permitted in RB2. So that, I think, is your analysis, and also additionally, just taking into consideration the health, safety, welfare of the public, and many of the concerns that were raised by these gentlemen who just spoke. Traffic.
And one of the gentlemen mentioned that back where he came from, that you could incorporate conditions that would, under certain conditions, if they weren't met, then it could go back to its normal zoning. We can't do that here.
No, well.
Original zoning, not normal zoning.
Yeah, so that's an unfamiliar concept to me. However, if the applicant's able to proceed, then the applicant will be facing a process that is, by its very label, a conditional use process. A conditional use permit's what's going to be sought, and of course what that means to everyone is that above and beyond the restrictions that appear in the code regarding the zoning districts, because of the intensity of a restaurant development, it's been deemed by the drafters of your code that it's appropriate for you to look at the specific site and to develop what appropriate additional conditions to make the use compatible with the area as you see fit.
That's all I have.
Yeah, and that's, I believe, very similar to what was referenced by, I think it was Mr. Robin or Robbins who spoke. Mm-hmm. Anyone else? Mr. Dedes?
Hi, my name is Jim Dedes. I'm the Assistant Town Manager. As Mr. Mandelis related earlier, that we had several hearings on this, one with the Public Service, the Office of State Planning, and then we had one at the Planning Commission. All went favorable, and that's why we're here today with a recommendation that was unanimous by the Planning Commission. I did talk to the Chief Planner for the Office of State Planning, Dorothy Morris, today, just to confirm the process to make sure we're all on board. We have duly advertised this. It has been noted in the paper, and letters, I think, went out to everybody within 200 feet. What I was told today was specifically, whatever the outcome, should you all decide to approve this, the vote that has to occur in sequence, that you have to approve the amendment to the comprehensive plan, and then you would go to the improving the zoning change from the resort residential to the RB2 district. So that's the sequence. That will go to the Office of State Planning once the ordinance would be passed, and after that, it's pretty much a done deal, is what she said.
All right. Anything from the commissioners? Anything more based on what we've heard you'd like directed to the applicant? No?
No.
Okay, so at this point, we can close the public hearing, is that correct?
Okay,
All right.
and then I guess I'll
Turn the
snatch back the
gavel back
gavel
over
from
to
you.
you, which you didn't share with me,
We
by the
then,
way.
we just had the public hearing opened and closed and discussion, and that was item number 3. And so we go to, I'm sorry, we go to item number 3, discuss and possibly vote to, number 1, to amend the 2018 Comprehensive Plan zoning map of the town of Dewey Beach, Delaware, regarding the property located at 26 Bellevue Street, being tax map number 334-20.18, parcel 150.00, so as to revise the map designation for said parcel from from RR Resort Residential to RB2 Resort Business. I wanted to change the way I read that there. So, is there a motion?
Motion.
So moved by Commissioner Bauer, seconded
Second.
by Commissioner Stevens. Is there further discussion? Mr. Persinger?
Yeah, I think we should spend a little bit of time talking about the overall issue. I mean, in terms of changing the comprehensive plan, again, I think this is a good visual illustration. I had the zoning map on my tablet as well. It's not a major change visually. There's certainly lots of other considerations that need to be thought through. The width of the street, makes a difference. I'm down on Dickinson and right next to a very large RB2 property down there, but we have a very wide street on Dickinson. We probably would not have the same kinds of safety concerns and, pedestrians and traffic and that sort of thing that you would have up on Bellevue where the street is much narrower. I think that the town is very much concerned about, and we're certainly very much concerned about many of the issues that were raised, particularly pedestrian safety. If you look throughout the town at all the new pedestrian signals, I think that's certainly evidence of the emphasis that we place on pedestrian safety. We just voted, I believe, at the last meeting to lower the speed limit on a year-round basis to 25 miles per hour. Again, I think that's evidence that, we are concerned about public safety. There's always the possibility that we could approve this rezoning and then that, the sale falls through and it falls to somebody else. But, again, unless it's something for which there isn't a conditional use process necessary, if some other restaurant owner wanted to come in there, they would have to go through the same conditional use process that the current applicants would have to go through. And my expectation is that, if we do approve the zoning, that the town will at some point present to us a full application for and plans for a new restaurant facility. And that restaurant facility will fully meet all of the aspects of the town code that it must meet, so that we and the Planning and Zoning Commission can then spend some time considering all of those environmental issues, the public health, safety and welfare, and traffic, pedestrian safety, parking, all of that. Well, I guess parking really will be part of the original application, and that will have to meet the town code as well. But again, that's something the town should be working out with the applicant, so they can come to us with a fully consistent application, and then we can address some of those many very important issues that the property owners on Bellevue have brought forth this evening. So I am in favor of the rezoning, and I will let others have a chance to comment.
I think you said everything.
Any other comments from the commissioner?
Dave Jasinski, from a kind of map and consistency perspective, when this came forward, the first thing I did was I looked at the zoning map and I said, okay, how are other parcels treated? And it's really kind of changing this to a treatment that's fairly consistent with what most every parcel except for one other one in the district get. So from my perspective, from a zoning perspective, what they're asking for is equity. from my perspective, in terms of the other parcels.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any against, say nay. Any abstentions? Unanimous, Kate. And
Okay, so that was the motion to amend the comprehensive plan.
that's great.
Right.
And in turn, as Mr. Dede said, we then have to take a second vote, or basically the same item, but to change the, change the zoning, right?
That's right, and I think this is a little bit of an awkward process, and I apologize for that. But we're doing our best to accommodate the requests of the State Planning Office with respect to the order in which we treat these items. And the reason is, you've heard us say many times before that the comprehensive plan carries with it the force of law. So you can't adopt an ordinance that conflicts with the comprehensive plan. So therefore, you have to amend the comprehensive plan first. Next, we then would turn to amending, and it's just a companion piece, the zoning map designation for the parcel. You can refer to it as it's stated in subsection B of item 3. And then I think just to be absolutely clear, if that motion passes, then I would ask you also to incorporate your thoughts and move the adoption or enactment of the ordinance that is in your packet, that's been circulated. So I would just ask, just for clarity purposes, that the ordinance be enacted as well, which is clearly your intent by making these motions.
So we'll take a vote on item number B, and then because the intent of both of them are to pass the ordinance, we'll then take a vote on the ordinance.
And the ordinance just merely combines the two issues into one legislative act.
All right, item number B, to rezone tax map number 334-20.18, parcel 150.00, located at 26 Bellevue Street, Dewey Beach, Delaware, from Resort Residential to RB Resort Business 2, RB2 Resort Business 2. Do I hear a motion?
Motion.
So moved by Commissioner Bowers, second by Commissioner Persinger. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any against, say nay. Any abstentions? Unanimous, Kate. I will then, we don't have to read the entire ordinance, do we?
No, no, you don't. If you'd like me to read the title to the ordinance,
That would be,
I'll do that. An ordinance amending the comprehensive plan by changing the zoning designation of the property located at 26 Bellevue Street, Dewey Beach, Delaware, tax map parcel 334-20-18-150 from RR Resort Residential to RB2 Resort Business, and to accordingly amend the Dewey Beach zoning map classification referred to at Chapter 185, Section 185-6 of the Municipal Code of the Town of Dewey Beach. That's the title of the ordinance, and I would suggest that you let that constitute a reading of the ordinance.
do I hear a motion to approve?
Motion.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Stevens, is there a second?
David did.
Commissioner Jazinski, looking the wrong way, so I'm fine. Not ignoring you. There's a proper motion and a second to accept the ordinance. Is there any further discussion amongst the commissioners? Commissioner Jazinski?
I was hoping, since we're kind of getting to the end of voting on here, if either Mr. Townsend or Mr. Dedes could go over the process for us for after this is passed, for the referral for conditional use, the application for conditional use, consideration, just so we're all clear on the timeframes and the notice requirements and what all has to happen. Is that something that we can do?
We can do that, but I would suggest that we act on the ordinance first, and then before we move on from the topic, we talk about future steps and time periods, and I think we're prepared to do that. I would ask you at least to make reference to support that was given for this application previously.
Would you like me to do a roll call vote then?
I don't think you need to do a roll call
Okay.
in this instance, but we're still in the discussion phase. We haven't left the discussion phase.
Right.
I'd like to hear something from the commissioners in support of their eventual votes, either for or nay, before you ask for a vote.
All right, I'll start with Commissioner Stevens.
Yeah, from Councilman Dallas, the map that they had up here, looking at the perspective in the past up until 2007, hearing from the members here of what you guys have come forth, and especially the chart that you put together in terms of the things, in complete support of approving this ordinance and moving forward. It does not create an issue in terms of it being a spot where we shouldn't have this type of change in the zoning. I do, if I had not known, I would always assume that was part of the residential business, just given its proximity to Hammerheads. So I don't see any problem with this moving forward.
Mr. Jazinski.
As I stated previously, the location similar to
I'm sorry, speak up a little bit.
as I stated previously, this is really about equity in terms of the RB2 district and the parcel's location relative to the highway and the rest of RB2. It seems consistent to grant them this, so I vote yes.
Thank you. Mr. Persinger.
As I stated earlier, I am in favor of this rezoning, so I am in favor of the ordinance.
Mr. Bauer.
I'm in favor of the ordinance as well. But the chart, obviously P and Z needs to go through these concerns that the residents on the street have. So I just asked for that to be included in their discussion so everybody gets heard.
All right, and myself as mayor, I will be voting in favor of the ordinance. I was worried about it at first because I'm worried about changing too much to the business side of the street, but I think with the neighbors have convinced me, and the neighborhood configuration that was shown on the map convinced me that it's proper for the neighborhood. So, and we'll call the question then, okay? Is that right?
Yes, it is.
Call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any against, say nay. Any abstentions? Kate, unanimous. And if you wait for a minute, I'll sign it right now.
Okay, so we want to use this opportunity to speak to, and
The process.
To the town manager for his signature.
Jim, do you want to see that? Refer to that.
Yes, the next step really is, you all are done at this point in time. The next step really goes to the applicant to file a conditional use application. They've submitted something, we're looking at it right now, and we have to make sure that they follow various sections of our code. Chapter 144, which deals with restaurants, Chapter 185, 74, 75 lays out a process as far as what they need to supply to the town manager to make sure that they have fulfilled their responsibilities for all the requirements for a conditional use application. Once we receive that, that will then be presented to the commissioners. We'll advertise it. I believe we don't have to advertise it at that point.
No. That'll be the opportunity for the commissioners to refer the application to planning, to the planning commission.
Okay, so that would be the next step. It would come back to the commissioners whenever we finish with the conditional use application review. Once you all decide how to proceed, that would go, and it will require a referral to the planning commission. That's when we will publicly advertise it again, and we will send out notification to the nearby neighbors. And then we start the process of looking at all the documents, and then they will hold a public hearing and attach and make recommendations for conditional uses, specifics.
That's planning and zoning public hearing.
That's totally
Yes.
that. And then, once they finish that, now they have 120 days to handle these things. Then it comes back to the commission, to you all again. Now it's a public hearing, it's advertised again, and we start the process, and
And that's a 15-day advertisement.
that's a 15-day.
Including the newspaper.
Yes, it is. Well, it's not quite just 15 days. It
Right, it's
depends on when we
25,
get it
right.
back. We have to tie into when the Cape Gazette is going to accept it all. And then that 15 days starts when we refer it to them. And that is the process. And it's a public hearing, so the public will have an opportunity to make their comments at the planning commission and again to the commissioners.
And at that point, the applicant's plans will be available for the public to review, so the public will be in position to make comments that are helpful during the process and that protect the interests that they wish to raise and that might be raised by others. One other quick thing. What I would characterize the rest of the process as following a lot consolidation, which is an administrative act. We would then have a expansion of an existing conditional use, which is the Hammerhead's conditional use. So we're not starting from scratch. There is a restaurant on the site already. It's just a question of whenever you expand an existing conditional use, you got to go through the same process that you would go through as if you were hearing an application to establish a new conditional use.
Just for clarity, so I was under the impression that we'd have to approve the mergers of those properties prior to, but you're saying no, they're happening independent.
I'm sorry, the commissioners are not involved in the process of
Merging the two properties
merging the
together
two
prior to
properties. That is an
conditional use.
administrative action as opposed to a legislative action, which would be your responsibility.
Mr. Person.
Just reiterating some comments that I made earlier. Again, my expectation is that the town will bring to us an application, a conditional use application that's fully consistent with the town code. So that, we understand that, planning and zoning understands that, and the public understands that as well. So that we're not spending our time trying to argue back and forth about whether or not this is consistent with the code or it isn't. We need to spend our time on the environmental aspects of having a new restaurant facility there and address many of the important issues that the property owners have brought up this evening. They are important. Some of them will be addressed, I think, by the town code and the requirements of the town code. But many others could be additional conditions that either planning and zoning may recommend and the town commissioners may then impose as part of the approval process.
If I could just comment, it's obviously staff plays a very important role in the process of evaluating these applications. But staff doesn't make the application. So the applicant will decide what they want to ask for. And the applicant has an expressed opportunity in the code to ask for a waiver from the strict enforcement of certain conditions. So it's up to them to decide whether they want to exercise the right to make that request, and it'll be up to you if such a request is made to exercise your discretion as to whether to grant it or deny it.
I would ask you to point me to the section of the town code that gives us that authority.
I mean, I can do it.
To waive any section of the town code, my understanding was that only the Board of Adjustment could provide variances or exceptions to requirements of the town code.
We're probably a little early to have that discussion, but I mean, I'm prepared to have it, but I don't know that you need to have it right now in this setting, but I'd be happy to talk to you about it. Right, I'd be happy to talk to you after this meeting.
It's a fundamental issue.
Right, and if that authority is exercised, then it will certainly be discussed publicly on a number of occasions.
All right, Mr. Dedes, are you finished?
Yes, sir.
I have a question for Mr. Dedes.
You can go right ahead. It's good. Public can have a question.
So, the conditional use, and we're talking about when the new property gets in there, it's an expansion of the existing conditional use.
Yes.
Okay, but I thought that Hammerheads, or the restaurant that used to be called Hammerheads, whatever, does that conditional use still in effect when it's been closed for over a year now? I thought that when the conditional use stops, that conditional use goes away. If that's the case, then the applicant would have to get a conditional use, a brand new conditional use for both the front property and the back property.
That's an interesting, I'm not prepared to answer that completely, but the reality is anytime you do a modification, you're going to have to go through a conditional use process regardless. So in essence, it seems like they're starting all over again.
Let's just make a point. We've been paying all our business license, our fire marshal, our health department lights on, start operating. We just have been restricted by staffing and state of emergency due to COVID, so we just couldn't operate this year because we had no staff. And it sucks. Well, besides that, regardless, they're going to have to go through the entire conditional use application with the modification. So they're almost starting from scratch. The question is the ABC board, but even then they're going to have to reapply to the ABC board with the restaurant. So in essence, they're starting all over.
That all from the public? I don't mind asking a question. Go ahead, answer one.
Just one question. So it's this body that ultimately will make the decision on the conditional use application. The Planning and Zoning Commission will, and pardon me if I don't have the exact terminology right, but that body will be advisory in nature, and it will come back to you to make the final decision on the actual conditional use.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Townsend, do you want to add
No,
anything to it?
that's correct.
Okay, then, we can move on to the next item. Item number 4. Item number 4, discuss and possibly vote. I'm going to ask everybody to keep the noise down, please. Discuss and possibly vote to approve an ordinance to amend Chapter 185 Utilities of the Code of the Town of Dewey Beach, Delaware, by adding thereto a new section relating to the regulation of wireless facilities. And I'm going to ask a question of our town attorney. Ask everybody to please keep the noise down. Town attorney, unless we decide that this is a minor adjustment to the code, we, by unanimous vote, of necessity, we have to refer this to planning and zoning, correct? Or it's not a minor?
Yes, I don't think you have the room to determine that this is a minor change, because this is a text amendment to the code. So there are instances in which an existing conditional use permit application may come before you, and you could deem the modification of that permit to be non-substantive, and in that case, you could approve without referring it to the Planning Commission. But when it comes to a text amendment, I don't think you have that flexibility. So your conclusion is correct that this will be referred to the Planning Commission as any text amendment would, and then it would be subject to this process that we just outlined for this applicant, and that is dual public hearings with the final determination made by the commissioners.
Then I'll accept a motion to move it to planning and zoning from someone.
Motion.
Mr. Bowers made the motion. Is there a second?
Second?
Second by Mr. Jazinski. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Persinger?
Excuse me, this referral would include not only the proposed changes that are in this ordinance, which is actually part of the code, but also the design standards?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any against, nay? Any abstentions? Kate, unanimous. Item number 5. I'm flipping through my paperwork here, I apologize. Item number 5, discuss and possibly vote to approve the proposed funding agreement that the state of Delaware with the state of Delaware to provide $375,000 to the town for 5G pole relocation project. I'd like first our town attorney to address the issue, if we would, please. The agreement issue. I believe you got this before.
Oh, right, okay. Proposed funding agreement with the state of Delaware to provide. I am not prepared to offer any comments on this. I'm sorry, Mayor, I don't recall.
I'm sorry, I thought that you were sent this.
I might have been sent in, I'm sorry, but what I reviewed was that MOU, but that's what I thought this was, but that's not what this is. This is the proposed funding agreement to provide.
It's memorandum of agreement. Yeah.
Is it the memorandum of agreement?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the memorandum of agreement, okay, thank you. I have reviewed that, and we have referred that back and forth with suggestions for revising it. This is the MOU involving?
No, no.
Okay, this is about the
I
funding.
apologize. I thought
No, you shouldn't apologize. I'm sure that this was sent to me.
Let me take a break for a minute. I'm going to get a glass of water.
All right, thank you.
You can't raise your hand. You got to be.
Get them all out now.
October 25th.
So these are from the, are these from municipal street funds or something, is it? Mm-hmm.
We have, what, 2 years to use it?
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, we'll take the money. If we need the, if we never use it, then it goes back to the state.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't go into our bank account yet.
Hmm? Yeah, right.
In mine.
That's all going to tie into the.
Time? Yeah. You're right.
Fred, I can comment on it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
All right, let's go back into session here.
All right, so what you're asked to consider is this memorandum, entering into a memorandum of agreement with the state of Delaware to receive a considerable sum of money, being $375,000, in the form of a capital improvement project, which requires Dewey Beach to manage the relocation of a number of 5G poles that are currently installed. The funding is contingent upon,
Folks, hold up one second.
Mr. Dedes, please.
Everybody pointed at everybody else. No, that's all right.
So the funding is available for the purpose of dealing with the current location of a number of 5G poles and in the context of our ordinance, which we have enacted, and it allows us to enter into arrangements with the owners of these poles to relocate them at our expense with the funding that has been provided by the state. And I see the town manager's raising his hand.
All right, I'm going to ask for the town manager, and then I'll make a statement, a quick question too. Go ahead, town manager.
So also, sir, we have 3 years to use this money, and whatever is not used, we must turn back to the state. And it can only be used to move 5G poles that are in the town.
And it does not commit us to absolutely do it or use the funds.
It doesn't. In fact, we would have to work with the 5G companies that own the poles to make this happen.
So, I think I'm right, Attorney.
That's the way it reads. It's use it or lose it, essentially.
Use it or lose it.
But you have 3 years, sir.
Right, yes.
But it's taking the responsibility off of the owners of the 5G poles to potentially pay for the removal of their poles that they put up.
Well, we don't even know how much it would cost.
Well, that's the second question, is how much will it cost to move a pole, and how do we come up to 375,000?
But it would give us that ability to spend if we so chose to do it.
Agreed, just 375 is a random number. I was just curious how they determined
We
375.
didn't choose it, they did.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't know how they chose 375.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think we'll be anywhere near 375,000 to move poles around. 5 poles.
I mean, the only thing I'd point out is until we kind of have a new location and exactly what the poles are going to be, they're not going to be able to tell us how much it costs anyway. So from my perspective, this is a gift to help us get through an issue that's very important to everybody.
Right.
Yeah. It's not the cost of the poles, it's the labor and all that other kind of stuff. So I'd like the motion to approve it. I mean, it's a use it or lose it. The money's available to us. I think the general consensus is we want to get these poles moved as soon as possible. So the quicker we act on it, at least we have the money sitting there if there are some charges that we're going to incur.
So you moved to,
Motion to approve the proposed funding agreement with the state of Delaware to provide $375,000 to the town for the 5G pole relocation project.
Second.
and seconded by Commissioner Jazinski.
And typically,
Discussion, Commissioner Stevens?
Yeah, I just want to make sure it clarifies something that Commissioner Barr said. It's not 5 poles. It can be any pole within the town of Dewey that we want to move, whether it might be providing a pedestrian walkway, it may be up around the dunes. But I'm saying it's not just the ones that would have been in question around the dune.
It doesn't say that, it says any 5G pole
Okay.
in the town.
All right.
Any other discussion?
and regarding the motion, I would interpret that as an authorization for the mayor, if the motion passes, to execute the agreement on behalf of the town.
Okay.
I'll add that to my motion.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any against, say nay. Any abstentions? Okay, unanimous, Kate. Item number 6. I'm sorry, yes, that's very good. You can step up and make the comment.
Oh, I want to just hear it. Nobody's explained what has happened. I mean, it's great that Dewey's done.
If you come up, state your name, and then give your statement, and if you commissioners care to answer, they will. If they don't, they won't.
Yes.
Go ahead, I'm
Hi,
sorry.
I'm Jeffrey Smith. I live with my wife at 30 C Strand, and I'm the contact for the Dewey Citizens for Accountability. And we followed the 5G issue, and we're very happy, exuberant. It's unheard of. In fact, it was a prediction I was very happy to get wrong. And I don't make predictions. So, but we don't understand. I mean, we've all read it. Money comes from somewhere. Is there a quid pro quo from the state? And so we just, a basic 411 on things. What you were talking there was some kind of inside baseball, like 375, 175, something like. I couldn't quite understand.
The state has offered to give the town, out of the state budget funds, $375,000 to help us if we can get an agreement to move existing poles that are in place right now.
Okay, so it does then make you have a subsequent agreement.
We'll have to have a subsequent agreement with the companies.
With a carrier.
Right.
Okay, so if you don't have it, you don't come to an agreement, no money, no
Right.
chicken, no washing.
Right, you got it.
So it would be.
I haven't heard that statement in 100 years. How old are you? No ticket, no washing.
Growing up in the city, that's what they used.
That was me. Go
Now
ahead.
it's probably not a good term. But the issue was that I think people that I've spoken to, what was the impetus for this? Because this relates to this next issue.
Right.
If the company, Verizon, did things badly, obviously, they're not having paid to take it out, the state is. So if they did things badly, that reflects directly on the ordinance we're looking at. Because then that's something that's substantive that matters. So if it was the issue, which I'm just gonna guess right now.
We're going to have to negotiate a final agreement, and all that will be taken up in some sort of final agreement. We're not going to lay blame or attempt to take blame, but we're going to come up with some sort of final agreement that the commissioners would then vote upon and with the help of the state, with $375,000, so that it won't cost the town anything.
Right, but they're not paying for other towns is what I'm pointing out, so, or not at least yet.
Not going to go into that.
Okay, so that would make Dewey unique, and that's really, another question is, why is Dewey getting this money and not others? That might be a way to ask. I get the answer, I hear
I'm
that.
not going to attempt to answer that question.
That's fair enough. So obviously, nobody's going to admit to wrongdoing in writing, but let's just say it was something like off the dunes, the issue of the dune line and others that the town solicitor identified. It's hard to know what, but I think the residents should, for transparency, know, what went on.
I think we should be open and above board with everything. And right now, we don't have a final solution, or we haven't come up with a negotiated final solution. When and if we do, it'll have to be done in front of the public.
Right, but it is fair to say there's nothing in the MOU, and I think you've indicated that you've seen it. There's nothing in the MOU that speaks to fault or justification or this being a remedy of any sort. It's just, I think, designed to remove the monetary impediment to moving the poles, so that if there is any way in which the poles could be moved through an agreement, the monetary aspect of it wouldn't be the hurdle.
Right.
But there isn't any, there's nothing in the MOU, and there's nothing that commissioners would have to say or would be implying by entering into this MOU that there's a smoking gun of any sort, or there's any fault or inappropriate actions that have been taken in the past.
Town Attorney, Mr. Smith, I'm going to have to go on. I'm going to have to move on.
If you mind, I can speak to how the 375,000 came about. Each poll is about $14,000. So just doing the math on that, did we just, if the state's going to assist us, how many streets do they do it on? So right now we have 5 polls there. If we had to move 5, we can do that math, and 100,000 would have been fine. But what happens between now and the next 3 years if anything else goes in? And so that's why, if the math came down to do 21 streets, let's assume that there was one everywhere. And if you had to move one everywhere of our 21 streets, it's about 375,000 with a little cushion.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to move on. Item number 6.
That was back of the napkin discussion.
Item number 6, discussion possibly vote to approve a resolution to combine the 2 town infrastructure accounts. And Gary, I'm going to jump to you real quickly because you're the one that originated this.
Well, yeah, and I drafted the resolution. Excuse me. Last year, we made some changes to the accounts where we set aside funds for certain purposes. And in making those changes, we decided to devote additional money to our streets and infrastructure account, which was established a number of years ago, and it's considered a committed fund balance by the auditors, which means that it was established by a formal action of the council. Formal action is considered either by virtue of an ordinance or by a resolution. When we made the changes to the other set-aside accounts, we did not do so. We did vote on it, but we didn't formalize it in terms of a resolution or an ordinance. So the result of that is when the auditors looked at our fund setup this year, we ended up with 2 infrastructure accounts. One, a committed account for streets and infrastructure, and the money that we reorganized is considered an assigned for streets and infrastructure account. So the idea here is to have a resolution to consolidate those 2 accounts so that we have one single committed account for streets and infrastructure. So what the resolution says is that we would, effective October 1st, the assigned infrastructure fund balance shall be eliminated, and funds from that assigned balance shall be transferred to the committed infrastructure account. Be it further resolved that, consistent with the Town Commissioner's April 24th, 2020 action, 3% of transfer tax revenues and 5% of parking permit revenues shall be transferred monthly to the committed infrastructure account effective October 1, 2021. So this is new action. It's really just reorganization. Again, it's something that matters to the auditors, but it simplifies things for us in terms of just having one streets and infrastructure account.
Makes sense.
Thank you. Mr. Stevens.
No, I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution to combine the 2 infrastructure accounts.
Okay.
Second.
Motion to approve it by Mr. Stevens, second by Mr. Bauer. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you very much, unanimous, Kate. Item number 7. This is something that can go very quickly here. Discuss the proposed revised Dewey Beach Employee Policy Manual. Everybody was asked originally to send in their comments. A number of comments were made over since the last meeting. Commissioner Persinger and myself have had discussions with the HR and Diane Campanelli and Sheena. Excuse me, I almost said the wrong name. Sheena Hall now. Revised the name there. And they're still working on making those changes. So I would just ask that we just refer it back to the town for completion. That's all right?
Sure.
That's all right? Okay. Discuss and possible vote to approve the town human resources services contract. The contractor that it's the same contractor we're using now, and we have used for a number of years, has left the company she's with and started her own company. The company has agreed that there is no non-compete clause. They're getting out of the HR business, and that's all she does is HR, so there's no non-compete stipulation. And we'd like to make and I'd call on the town manager to explain it.
Yeah, so as of the end of September, we will no longer be with the Lions Services for Human Resources. We will be going with Diane Campanelli, which is People Dynamics.
If approved.
If approved. It'll be substantial savings to the town by going with her. She's also, as the mayor said, worked with the town for several years, and she's currently working on our personnel policy with Sheena Hall, myself, Commissioner Persinger, and the mayor. We had calls this week, and we are getting very close to finishing the personnel policy manual. I feel by November, we will be voting on it for approval.
Mr. Stevens?
No, I read through it. It's very reasonable from a cost perspective, especially the services that we need to provide. So I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second. There's a motion by Mr. Stevens to approve, second by Mr. Bauer. Any discussion on the matter? Hearing none, call the question. Everybody in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody against say nay. Any abstentions? Unanimous, Kate. I said K, I mean Kate. Item number 9, discuss and possibly vote to refer planning and zoning the matter of zoning restrictions on placement of swimming pools in front yard. As you know, it was found not too long ago that although we never intended for pools to go in the front yards, or it was never intended, it wasn't written properly, and there was a clause that allowed it, and we'd like to limit that clause, or I'd like to limit that clause. I'd like to send it to P&Z for their thoughts on the matter and have them referred back to us. Mr. Stevens.
Mr. Mayor, can you let us know the exact part of the code that you're looking for him to make it?
185-51B. And there's actually a way to do it if you change one word in there.
So, right, so the existing code reads as establishing limitations against the location of swimming pools with respect to side and rear yard setbacks, but doesn't mention front yard setbacks whatsoever. So the way in which it's worded, it's clear that what's intended is that the pools would be located in the rear of in the rear yard and not in the front yard, because there's the reference again is. One of the references is to the rear yard setback for a pool. So that's the problem. It presumes if you deem it to be a problem, the restriction against locating pools is in the context of rear and side yards, and there's no mention of front yards. If that makes sense.
It just says may occupy required yard.
Yeah, it says required or rear yard, I believe.
It's required yard or side yard.
Or side yard.
And so we're asking this to go to planning and zoning to give an opinion on rewording that to restrict, to potentially restrict.
Right.
Okay.
It's a zoning code provision, and therefore we're required to refer it to Planning Commission for a recommendation.
I think it's exactly where it needs to go.
Yeah. So I'll accept a motion from someone to,
Motion.
motion from Mr. Bauer. Second?
Second.
Second from Mr. David.
David?
Mr. David. Anyway, properly moved and second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any against, say nay. Any abstentions? Item number 10, discuss and possibly vote to refer to the Planning and Zoning Commission the matter of a proposed ordinance to amend Chapter 173 of the Town Code regarding removal of trees. And this is another one that I had been planning on bringing up for months and put off and thought I had plenty of time, and I don't. So I'm bringing it up. We have a real problem right now. Item 173-6 gives us present assessment for failing to get the proper permission at $500. People are doing it right and left because they're selling their houses for $1 million, and if they want that tree removed before they sell their house, in order to sell it, they just cut it down. We've had that happen a number of times, so I'm trying to eliminate that, and then have them also look at all the rest of 173 to give some ideas of how it should be changed for future to save the trees. So, not a tree hugger, but I believe once they're gone, they're gone. And we're not making them, unfortunately also, we're not making them enforce the part of the regulation that says they should replace the tree if they did it improperly. We've had two of them on Chesapeake Street. Mr. Stevens.
So we're again, just from a discussion perspective, we're looking to possibly ask Planning and Zoning to review all of Chapter 173?
Yes, and in particular
And provide any recommendations to...
Yeah,
Okay.
for changes.
All right. I'd like to make a motion to refer Chapter 173 to the Planning and Zoning Commission for their review.
Seconded by Mr. David.
Mr. Jazinski, I apologize. Motion by Mr. Stevens and his partner, Mr. Jazinski, seconded.
There you go.
And any further discussion? If not, all in favor, I'm sorry, Mr. Person.
Could you just include in there the suggested change in the violation assessment from 1,000 to 500 to 1,000? You didn't mention that. You were just talking about looking at 173. I think we ought to include that specific recommendation in there as well.
I didn't see that specific.
It was in the background.
Well, that's the second one.
In the very last background
You
document.
see, he's connected there and to the area too.
Okay.
You accept that?
I accept that revision to the...
You accept
Yes.
that? Thank you. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any against, say nay. Any abstentions? Unanimous. Okay. Commissioner comments. Commissioner Bauer. I'm sorry, I'm going to go to town manager first. Town manager comments.
Comments or finances? Did we want to do just a rough look at the finances or no, sir?
We didn't have that on our,
Wasn't on the agenda.
wasn't on the agenda.
It could be part of your comments.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
So part of my comments, thank you, Mr. Mayor, is that the town is doing very well, mainly because of transfer tax. We're moving in the right direction. We are overspending right now in one area, and that's on salaries, but a lot of that will be reimbursed. It's from the police department, some of their programs that they're working and the number of hours they're working. We will get back some federal funding on some of that. And I would like at this time just for Sheena Hall, just to go over a couple items real quick on the budget.
Absolutely.
Of course.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Hey, you want to pull that mic towards you? Thank you.
Not really, but. Okay, I was looking at some of the numbers because we're approaching 6 months in this fiscal year. Right now, our transfer tax sits at $1 million we've received this year. It is starting to decrease. I got the numbers for the August transfer tax, and we'll only receive about 50,000. So that's back in line with what we had looked at. We have hit our budget for seasonal parking. That's great. Daily parking. We will hit the budget for that. We're $4,000 short as of today. We'll hit it. Our bonfires. The beach has obviously been lit up because we have hit the budget for that. Thanks to our code enforcement supervisor, Merle Leonard, having somebody on the beach most mornings, and our town manager's idea of the the limited edition Dewey dog tags. We're at $33,000 for dog tags this year. Wow. We budgeted $20,000. So those two programs have been phenomenal. And we're selling dog tags online. That has made a big difference also, those three things. The accommodations tax is trending above what we had predicted based on the 5-year average. And it's now due this month, so we should do really good. Normally, we're at 10% of budget. Right now, we're at 17%, which may not seem like a lot, but that's a substantial difference. Our building permits are at 64% of budget so far this year. And I hear there's a couple big projects happening. Normally, we're at about 25% of budget at this time. So we're doing very good. Our town fines written by Chief Mackert's people. Obviously, people have been misbehaving this year because they have been doing very well.
No shortage of that.
No. Our marketing donations, we've received $5,000 towards the beautification project.
Wow, good.
We're receiving donations on benches. We're receiving donations on bike racks. So the town is really helping to make this a better place. And I looked at, the only place we are not going to make budget on parking is our parking meters. Not because people aren't using them, not because of Park Mobile. We budgeted too high. Based on historical averages, we budgeted a little too high. But we know better for next year. So, thank you, gentlemen.
Sheena, I just wanted to compliment you in front of the commissioners on a couple things. Number one, on the budgetary process, but number two, on the HR process. Sheena has done a lot of work, a lot of putting up with me with a lot of my questions in particular, but she's done a lot of work on the personnel manual, and I thank you.
Well, thank you. And thank you for approving Diane's contract. I'm hoping to get certified by the end of this year in HR, but I still need her guidance.
Thank you, Sheena. The reason I asked Sheena to go over those numbers, we're just about at the 6-month mark for our budget, and I wanted you to know where we actually sat. The next thing I'd like to just talk about quickly is the general fund that Commissioner Persinger was talking about, implementing that. So, I mean, I think we need to get some guidance from the commissioners to move forward on this. So we have about 1.4 million in the Brown Advisory. We have 2.3 million approximately in our general fund for a total of 3.7 million. The rainy day fund needs approximately 1.9, half our budget. That's what it needs in there, according to the way the general fund's supposed to work. So we can move that money. We can move the money from Brown Advisory. I mean, move Brown Advisory under the rainy day. Then we'd have to borrow $500,000 out of the general fund, move it over there. We'd make the 1.9 at that point. That would still leave us approximately 1.4 million in the general fund. Then we have to take another $575,000 out for the 60-day unassigned fund that we talked about. That would put us down to 1.2 million approximately. And then from there, we need to take the capital improvement money out to go into that account. So I just say that to the commissioners. At some point, we really need to start moving on this and making this work. So I throw it out there now because in October, I'd like us to really start implementing the general fund. I think it's a good concept. I think it's where we need to go. And I would just ask that you start thinking about that so we can start moving on it. I know we voted to approve it, correct? Right, so I don't know whose approval I need to start moving, Sheena and I to start moving that money around in those different areas. I know we shouldn't do it.
Go ahead, Gary.
Well, my thoughts, as you said, we approved it. We outlined the general fund balance policy, and it's a matter of implementation. We look to the people in the town to do that. And as long as it meets the specifics in the general fund balance policy, I think we're fine. In terms of objectives of the general fund balance policy, at least from my perspective, we wanted to create the capital improvement fund. So we've got money to do that. The money at Brown Advisory, I think, and Bill may want to comment on this, I think we wanted to be able to give the investment committee a little more flexibility in terms of being able to generate a better return with that money. So I think, having that as the rainy day fund, or as the major portion of the rainy day fund, allows them to do that, because we still have, as you say, that 2-month cushion of money, which is the remaining portion of the unassigned fund balance. So, we've got the emergency funds in place. We've got the beginnings of a capital improvement fund. We have a broadband infrastructure fund that we can draw on as well. And I think that's hopefully largely funding our consultant services that we're getting. So again, from my perspective, it's a matter of you guys going ahead and implementing this policy.
All right. Can I continue?
Just one further comment, though. I agree, and I'll from as a liaison to the investment committee, we'll also review our current policies for allocation for our risk profile and bring it back to the commissioners for their review and approval, so that it's not just sitting in cash in a different account.
Right.
Go ahead.
Since we've accepted the audit, I'd like to go ahead and do the $100 audit incentive or bonus to each one of the full-time employees.
Commissioners, he's looking for your,
I'm
not
just-
not
I
a
don't know if I
vote
need to
not a
let you
vote
know
of
or-
approval. He's just looking to
No.
tell you,
Okay.
so you acknowledge it.
Right.
Right, I'm also looking at reorganizing some of our departments. I'll brief you fully on that when we do it. I'll also be asking for an executive session in the October meeting. The police chief and I, Chief Macker, are going to come before you and discuss some personnel matters with salaries. And so I'm letting you know that now, that I'll be asking whoever the new mayor is, that is put on the agenda for an executive session. I've started evaluations for the employees. I've got one done. I'm working on the second one now. I'm moving slowly in the right direction to have all the folks that fall under me to have their evaluations done. We are under right now in writing citations, traffic parking tickets, so nobody can come out and say, hey, we're out there, the town is out to get people on parking fines. We're really not. I mean, in 2018, we were at 7,800 for the end of the year. 2019, we were at 7,200. Right now, we're at 53. We're at 5,300 parking fines that have been written. Now, there'll be more that maybe another 800 or so that may come in between now and the 15. But remember, we only had 3 to 4 people writing traffic citations all summer. And I say 3 to 4 because one only worked 4 hours a day because of health reasons, and one had to leave because of a hip replacement.
And town manager, I just want to remind the commissioners, I think we're the only town in the world that lowered the parking fines and fees on tickets. We went from $35 to $30. Nobody ever lowers them. They always scream, we got to raise them, and we lowered them. So go ahead.
Yeah, and I'd also, the chief and I have discussed their monthly stats. Again, they had a busy month. They had 63 criminal arrests this month. They had 60 traffic citations and 82 parking tickets. Now, that's down from the month of July, but considering that some of their folks had to leave early, that I still think they had a great summer. So I thought they did a great job in the month of August. The other 2 things that were in there for supporting documents were 2 projects that I'll be referring to the infrastructure committee. One of them is the Reed Street, 3 pipes that go out for the stormwater. Mr. Dedes and I were out there. We looked at it. We took Jim Tyler with us, who's the chairman of the infrastructure committee. So he saw that. So he'll know when it's coming over. It's going to be approximately $24,000 if we want to do that project and do it right. But again, that'll be to go from the infrastructure committee back to you. And then the other one's over on Houston Street or Houston Street. There's a large parking lot over there that we have a resident that's complaining about the water coming off the road into his parking lot. And for us to do some exploratory looking inside some pipes, it's going to be around $10,000. So that also I will be sending over to the infrastructure committee. And we also took the chairman over there to look at that project. And I know the mayor is very familiar with the emails that we've received constantly from the individual who's bringing that to our attention. The other thing I'm going to bring in front in October is the way we write tickets for are folks that are using Park Mobile and the kiosks. If they fail to put in, if a visitor fails to put in the Paul Charles or the Charles Lincoln in front of the tag, not only do they pay for the parking, right? They pay for the parking, but then there's a $30 fine on top of that, just because they forgot to put in the PC or the CL. I get several phone calls a month about that, and I think it's really doing the town a disservice by us not giving these folks a break. They've paid their parking. They just made the mistake by not putting in the Paul Charles or in the Charles Lincoln. And in some of our kiosks, it does say actually, make sure you put in both letters and numbers. But I think it's just bad business, finding the people on top of them paying for the parking. So I'll be bringing that before you, and Ashley's helping me write the policy on that. If I could at this time, if we could start the pictures. So you'll see some of these pictures. The Bayard Avenue project, we did over 60 tons of crush and run on there. You'll see some pictures that it's actually finished. You see the Kubota being used. McKinley Street, we've put some fencing up there also, replaced some of the signs. On Reed Street, the water garden in front of the little store, we've completely cleaned that out. We kept in the actual flowers and the planting, and we put some more year-round type of flowers in there. New signs on Reed Street to try to slow folks down. You'll see some new signage there. We helped with the kids running of the bulls with Dewey Beach Partnership this year. Todd Fritchman and his team did a good, nice job at the end of Labor Day, having a nice cookout, and we were over and we were part of that. Reed Street pipes I've talked about already. Housel Street, I've talked about that. The pump station over at the corner of Bellevue and Bayard. You'll see some pictures up here. I was out there and I noticed the concrete where the water comes out of the pump station. There's a concrete wall. Then there's a concrete wall on the berm that runs like this, and they are starting to separate. If we let that continue, we're going to get water back into the berm, and then the concrete could actually fall in. So we're going to need to get some estimates done on that, and we'll be referring that probably to the infrastructure committee before that gets too bad. And you'll see some pictures up here on that also. There's some mold that's coming. You'll see in some of the photos. There's mold in the second floor of the police station. I had all temp out there today. They installed the new air conditioning units. They said their air conditioning units, the return, and the handler are all running at temperatures where they should be. So I called Dr. Val of Environmental Compliance. He will be coming down on Monday or Tuesday, and he'll be doing some air samples up in the police work area to find out what's actually coming out of these two vents and to what extent. He also provided me some history on the town hall, talking about what's actually underneath the town hall and the issues they had when they initially built it, and I'll share that with the commissioners once I get that from Dr. Val. As the mayor said, September 18th, the end of the year party. Beach replenishment, possibly in September of 2022. The mayor and I were part of that conversation. As far as the police, when we talk about their extra duty jobs that they work out here, whether it's the races or whether it's out in front of one of the establishments here in town, Rehoboth Beach charges $80 an hour with a 3-hour minimum. Out of that $80, $65 goes to the officer, $15 goes to the town for the gasoline that's being burned in the police car. The police car is out there on the street. So both Ocean View and Rehoboth are charging $80 an hour and have it broken down that way. I think we should follow that. I think that's a good policy. I don't think we're above anybody. Right now we're strictly just $50 an hour with nothing going to the town for the administrative part of the vehicle being out there on the road.
And that $50 an hour was put in years ago when the chief and I discussed it back then. So.
Right.
And it's time for a change.
So, and just one of the other things I'd like to bring to your attention is that next month's meeting is scheduled on the 9th. That's the same day as Dewey Goes Pink. I think we should move it to a different date, and that'll be up to the new mayor at that time, but I'd just like to bring it to your attention. Last night I received a DelDOT draft contract for the work that's going to be done on the center islands. I've got a copy here. I'm going to give to Fred tonight so he can start reviewing it. Overall, we've got 365 that the state's going to put in for that project. The town is in for $35,000. It's already been approved. And then there's CTF funding of another $50,000 from Representative Schwarzkopf, who put in for that project. So the money is there to finish the project. What we're going to need to do is look over the draft contract, bring it in front of the new mayor after Fred's looked at it, and then it's going to have to be signed off. I just want to say that I think the police department, the lifeguards, parking folks this year, our administrative staff, assistant town manager, they've done an outstanding job during the summer. This is my first summer as town manager, going from Memorial Day to Labor Day, and I just want to let the commissioners know that everybody worked together as a team. And that's really important. Even though we were short the town clerk all summer, everybody stepped to the plate and did an outstanding job getting that done. At this point, I just asked the chief to go over a couple numbers.
Thanks, Bill. Before I come up to the meeting tonight, I just wanted to look and see where we were compared to last year. For calls for service for 2020, for the full year, we ran 1,632. As of 5 o'clock tonight, we are already at 1,868. So, I don't need to tell you folks how many people and busy we were this summer. It was a big concern for us because we didn't get the manpower with our seasonal staff like we had wanted. And plus a lot of them went back to college early, but we had a successful summer, and those numbers show how much more, busier we've been. And finally, I know you know about it, Mayor, because you helped sign the grant. We were approved for the $28,000 grant where we're going to get new antennas and data ports out on the highway and new crime cameras, additional crime cameras. So we did get that grant approved. I believe I got it on Monday. So that'll be a big help and a big improvement to the townwide crime camera system that we've got.
Good. Thanks, Chief. Bonfires continue to do well, 204 for the month of August. Dog licenses, lifetime 141 sold just in the month of August, temporary 156. So people in Dewey love the dogs, and I'll probably come back at some point and maybe raise the dog licenses fees at some time to come back with some additional funding. I've been working with the chief and with Sheena to come up with the salary increases in the personnel package that the mayor has asked for. So I think we will be able to provide that either in October or November to the commissioners to look at. I think I'll be able to come to you and say, for example, it's going to cost us $300,000 to do this. And I would hope you would come back and say, okay, now how are you going to pay for it? And then it's my job with Sheena to come up and figure out how we're going to pay for that. So you're going to see that in October when we come before you. The last thing is I'd like to thank the mayor for all his patience. Appreciate it. All this since I started. Thank you so much. And Kate and Sheena, another great job for another meeting. Thank you. That's all, Mayor.
Anything else?
That's it, sir.
Okay. Damn. Talk about stealing thunder. Commissioner comments.
That's a little
I'm
tough.
sorry. Do we have any more public comments first before? Anybody want to make any final public comments? Hearing none, let's go to commissioner comments. Mr. Bauer.
Oh, tough following up Bill. I mean, Bill, you've been a little busy this month, huh? Yeah, just two things. I want to give an update on the beautification project. It's been going very well. We're up to, what was it, you said 5,000, 5,500, something like that? Yep. So I want to recognize the Octa Lounge. They were our first one. It's a boat out on the bay there. Bill Cramen, Bobby Redifer, Pat Wright, Hyatt Place, Dewey Crush, Rehoboth by the Sea, Bill and Janine Stevens, Delaware Payroll Services, and Jeffrey and Sandra Smith. Thank you very much for your contribution.
Will that carry through till this time next year? Is that it?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about it. We're going to redo this median strip. These signs have only been up a short period of time. I don't think it should count. I think this should really count towards, when we put them back up, we'll start the clock.
All in favor?
Hey, thanks for that slide. Yep. You want to buy another one?
Anything else, Mr.
Well, I
Barr?
want to recognize this guy over here to my right for all his hard work and contributions to this town.
But I got a shirt.
And you got a shirt out of the deal. I mean,
Paid for it yourself, right?
I mean, you got a parking pass. I mean,
Yeah,
so-
that's true. I got a
No,
parking pass.
I mean, all kidding aside, thank you very much, Dale.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Mr. David, Mr. Jazinski.
Mr. David, consistent with what Mr. Dede's outlined, if the applicant who's looking to do a conditional use, if it's ready in time, I'd like to ask that the mayor consider at our organizational meeting adding the referral to P&Z onto that agenda. It'll just save them a few weeks and it'll meet the requirements of the time. And it's a pretty quick agenda item, and that's if the conditional use app is ready in time. Is that something we can do, Fred?
That's something you can ask,
Yeah.
and I think that's all you're doing at this
Yeah.
point is asking that that be considered.
Yeah.
Will be considered. I'll just say that, there will be a new mayor then. I'll start the meeting. As soon as commissioners are sworn in, I will step back there and not be up here.
I understand that, but I think
To get it on the record.
to get it on the agenda, it has to be done.
Yeah, money.
It'll be considered.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything else?
No, that's it.
Mr. Persinger?
Yeah, just very quickly. I will not be at the next meeting, the organizational meeting. I hope to participate virtually.
We're working on it. We are trying to get that done.
So I just want to take the opportunity, just because, face to face, to thank you for your service to the town. You've been a commissioner or mayor the entire time I've been on the town council. I very much appreciate working with you, respect your opinion. And, there are a number of situations, I think, where Dewey is not viewed in the kind of favorable light that we would all like to see. I know we had a situation that was reported in Cape Gazette a couple months ago, and you felt the need to write a letter objecting to that, and I think that was certainly the right thing to do. My wife just told me the other day with one of her friends, she had heard a similar comment from her friend who lives in another beach community that they just didn't want to be like Dewey. Well, I know that everything you've done as a mayor, as a commissioner, as a committee member, has been intended to make Dewey a better place. And, I think we need to continue the work to make Dewey a better place, and to have beach communities really emulate Dewey Beach as a town, so that they look to us, if there's something new that they want to do, they can look to us as an example where to start. So again, I appreciate your service, and I just want to say that to you personally.
Thank you very much. I
All
appreciate
right.
it. Mr. Stevens, I have you last. I had to check next to your name.
You started
as
by
if
saying we're going to go from the left
as if
side.
it was-
just
Well,
to go back
I've been
around.
jumping back and forth trying to be fair now.
No, I completely get that. I'll end with my Cook comments. It's Cook with an E. But a few things that I have on my list is to reiterate what town manager said on the October meeting. I don't know the process for us to change the date, maybe try to keep it that Friday night beforehand versus putting on Saturday on October 9th. And because we do have Dewey Goes Pink at 10 o'clock in the morning on that same day. So I think there's just going to be a challenge. So I just wanted to reiterate that as part of my notes. This is to the town's perspective. Love the fact that we've got so much in donations to continue for the beautification. The only thing I'd ask is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kate, but I think that you only can do the signage online, because I try to look at if you wanted to update it, if you wanted a bench, or if you wanted other elements of donations, that it's not online.
It is.
All right, well, you can maybe show me how to get there, because I couldn't buy a bench.
I actually moved it right to the front page here.
I had to move it. It was
Okay.
just hard to find some.
The handshake button.
Yeah,
Okay.
Right in the center here, it says sponsorship opportunities.
All right.
That's really funny. But there it gives you a whole list of all the different ways that you can donate.
Wonderful. Okay, great. I feel like a dinosaur. I couldn't find it. Speaking of dinosaurs.
We'll show you these here.
Thanks, really appreciate it. Yeah, Dale, I went through the history of Dewey. Obviously, when I first got here, I wanted to just become part of this town and see this, did research. And looking back over the commissioners of the years, from a mayor perspective, commissioner perspective, going back to 81, no one has served as much as you have in terms of the total of years that you've put towards this town and the heart towards this town, whether it's being acting town manager, as mayor, as commissioner, even taking a break in the middle there for a period. So just wanted to say thank you for all that you've done. And also I did have a conversation, so I'm going to hold him to this, with Mayor Cook, in that just because he's done being on the commission, on the councilor's perspective, he's willing to participate in various committees. So we may hold you to that and to some of the other committees that we have, but sincerely from the heart, thank you for everything.
Just as long as no one wants to say you're chairman of it. I don't want to be responsible. I just want to go and raise my hand.
We'll see.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I really have good and bad thoughts about not being mayor anymore, and good and bad thoughts about not being a commissioner anymore. But after I quickly find out it's going to be a good thing for me and a good thing for the town. So there's a few things that I think are important in town. I think the two major things that the town needs to do in the future is address sea level rise in a big way. And because of that, a capital improvements budget. I think both things have to be done. It's something we put off and put off and put off because we don't want to address it. We're going to have to spend millions of dollars on sea level rise. There's no doubt in my mind that you're going to have to come up with some sort of funding to cover sea level rise. And a capital improvements budget, I think you have to begin to put money away for things that are going to go bad. I mean, we all know as we get older, things break down. So things in this town break down also. I think that parking tickets, Bill, when you mentioned that change in policy, I think it's time for the commissioners to make a change in that policy. I don't know if I told you before, and I may have told Sheena too, but I tried to make that change before, and the people in parking, it was a bureaucracy at the time, and people in the town court suggested not to do it. So you have to address that first, but I think it should be changed because people attempt to pay their parking fee. If they don't pay it, that's one thing, but they attempt to pay their parking fee and they put it in wrong. Rehoboth gives the first round a pass, but if they make a mistake, but I don't know how they keep up with, how do you know if it's the first or the 10th time? But it's not that amount of money, it's the policy that the town had. We're not trying to make money with parking, we're trying to get people to park correctly. I think, I'm going to differ with you, Bill. I think the times and dates of meetings should be kept the same all the time so the people of the town can count on it month after month after month that in October it starts the second Saturday morning of the calendar. They know it's going to be a town meeting, and starting in May, it's going to be the second Friday night of the calendar. And they've known it for years, it's been that way for years, and every time you think about it, people say, well, this is an emergency this time, or there's a problem this time. There'll always be an emergency, there'll always be a problem. Just have the meetings, and if you have to, cut them short. But I think it's important that the people of the town know that every second weekend is going to be a town meeting. I want you to know that I signed a letter with 3 other town mayors, the mayor of Rehoboth, the mayor of Open Acres, and the mayor of Lewis, and myself, requesting financial assistance from the federal government, meaning our state representatives and our federal government representative, for assistance in cleaning up that damn canal, the Rehoboth-Lewis Canal. Our name is not on it, but it ends at Dewey, basically. So I signed on to it. Not going to cost the town any money. It's not It does not request that we spend money on it right now. It requests that the federal government have the Army Corps of Engineers do something about cleaning up the cleaning up the canal. So I want you to know about that, whoever ends up being mayor. And finally, David Jazinski's going to kill me because I'm dragging this out, and he and Gary have to go home for 2.5-hour drive. So, but I really appreciate everything everybody's done for me. You guys have accepted me as part of the family, so to speak. I'm the crazy uncle, you know, that push him off the side and let him talk to the wall, you know. but I've been a pain in the butt, and I know that. But I mean, if I didn't want what's good for the town, I would have just let go the disagreement with you tonight, Bill. Sure. But you think one way and I think another, and it doesn't mean we're right or wrong, it's just that's the way we feel. And I think it's important that whoever's mayor stands up, spends the time, and does the work for the town. The town's done right by me, the state, Delaware has done right by me, and all their representatives, Schwarzkopf and Lopez, have done right by me, and I appreciate everything. Thank you all very much. And with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. So moved.
All right.
Bill.
Yes, sir.